Welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to imagine something. You walk up to a vending machine, you put your money in, you press the button for, I don't know, your favorite snack, and it just drops right down into the tray.
Yeah, it's very satisfying.
Right. It is perfectly transactional. The logic is clean. It's binary. And honestly, whether we admit it or not, this is exactly how most of us expect the universe to work.
Oh, totally. We absolutely do.
We operate with this underlying assumption of precision. Like, you put in the good deeds, the hard work, the right choices, and the universe is just supposed to dispense a predictable, comfortable life.
Okay, let's unpack this because that is the exact crisis we are exploring today.
Right, because that assumption is, it's the ultimate comforting illusion. We are just desperate for that input equals output logic because it makes us feel safe.
Exactly.
But then you encounter the actual, chaotic reality of living. You get hit with a sudden layoff despite being the top performer, or you get a terrifying health diagnosis, or a long-term relationship just collapses out of nowhere. And suddenly you're standing in front of that cosmic vending machine realizing it is completely broken.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
You put the money in, you did everything right, and literally nothing came out. Or worse, the machine just tipped over and crushed you.
Which happens a lot, unfortunately.
It really does. And so today we are unpacking a really fascinating stack of personal notes. They are titled The Pendulum of Life, Navigating Uncertainty Through Faith. And this deep dive is for anyone who has ever felt overwhelmed by life's unpredictability.
Yeah, and what makes these notes so striking is how they synthesize completely different fields. I mean, the source blends religious philosophy, evolutionary biology, and psychology to answer a really basic human question, like why do we despair when things go wrong, and how do we actually find peace of mind?
And it fundamentally attacks this hidden, unspoken contract we think we have with reality. We tend to view spiritual or ethical practices as, like, currency.
Right, exactly. The notes actually point to specific Islamic practices to illustrate this. Things like tahajjud, which are, voluntary prayers in the middle of the night.
Well, yeah.
Or making the Hajj or Umrah pilgrimages to Mecca, or even just consistently giving to charity. We do these things, and subconsciously, we expect infinite goodness in return.
Is the ultimate transaction. We think, well, I woke up at 3 in the morning to pray, or I donated 10% of my income, so I have basically purchased an insurance policy against suffering.
Yes. And when a problem inevitably bypasses that imaginary insurance policy, our immediate reflex is to assume it is a targeted punishment. We look at our life and think, what specific thing did I do wrong to cause this?
They blame ourselves.
Exactly. And the expert source shares a really specific reference to ground this. It points to a verse from the Quran. It's Surah Fusilat, chapter 41, verse 49.
What does that say?
It states that human beings basically never tire of asking for good things. But the very moment evil fortune or hardship hits, they experience this total whiplash. They just instantly abandon all hope and fall into complete despair.
See, I struggle with this concept, honestly.
Really? How come?
Because, everything in modern society tells us the exact opposite. We are raised on a strict diet of cause and effect. Wait, isn't cause and effect how life works? If I grind at my job for 80 hours a week, I expect a promotion. If I study hard, I pass.
Right, the whole hustle culture thing.
Exactly. Are these notes arguing that our effort is essentially meaningless?
Well, no, that cultural narrative of the grind is precisely what this text is dismantling, but it makes a really sharp distinction. The argument is not that effort is meaningless. It is that effort and outcomes are two entirely separate things.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, effort is completely within your control, but the outcome is fundamentally not. And the source actually uses that exact example you just brought up, the student studying for an exam, to explain this.
The student who studies all night but still fails.
Yes. The text argues that the student who studies incredibly hard but still fails is actually, in a strange long-term way, they are blessed.
Wow. Try telling that to the kid who just got an F. That sounds totally counterintuitive.
I know. On the surface, it feels incredibly unfair. But if you dig into the psychology of it, that student learns a vital survival lesson very early in life.
That the universe doesn't owe you anything.
Exactly. They learn that effort does not guarantee the outcome. They build emotional calluses. They figure out how to process disappointment, dust themselves off, and just try again without shattering.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now, compare that to the student who gets everything effortlessly. The one who barely opens a book, gets straight A's, lands the perfect job right out of college, and basically never faces friction.
Oh, I see where this is going. They start believing they are the master of their own destiny.
Yeah.
They develop this massive blind spot because they think they have total control over everything.
Right, and that is a highly dangerous psychological state to be in, because eventually they will hit a wall, their effort won't yield the result they demand, a startup fails, or a marriage struggles, or the market crashes.
And because they have never developed the tools to handle that disconnect between input and output, they just break.
They completely break. They are the ones who fall into the absolute despair mentioned in that verse, because their entire worldview has just been violently disproven.
Which raises a massive question. If our good deeds, our studying, our hard work don't actually dictate the outcomes, then what does? What is actually driving the ups and downs?
That is the big question.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This brings us to the core metaphor of the author's notes. The concept of life as a pendulum. It swings between easiness and difficulty, completely independent of our actions.
Yes. A pendulum doesn't swing because of what you do. It swings because of the built-in momentum of the system.
Right.
And the source expands on this by comparing these swings to natural cosmic cycles, like the absolute inevitability of day turning into night, or the sun's 11-year cycle, which naturally alternates between calmness and high solar activity.
I love that analogy because, we don't take it personally when the sun sets. When the sky goes dark, you don't sit in your living room thinking, oh no, I was a bad person today, so the universe is punishing me with the night.
Exactly. The darkness isn't a punishment. It is just the personality of the universe functioning as designed.
But the human ego absolutely hates that. I mean, the notes make this really brilliant observation about how silly we look when the pendulum swings into the night phase of our lives.
We really do. We just panic.
We completely panic. We refuse to, it's just a natural swing. So we visit astrologers, we try random solutions, we drink weird green juice, we buy self-help books.
We just pull levers frantically.
Yeah, exactly. And then eventually the pendulum just naturally swings back to the day phase. The sun rises again. And what do? We point at the green juice and say, hooray, that worked.
Right. When in reality, as the text points out, all that was required was waiting. The pendulum was always going to swing back.
So if we know this logically, if good and bad times are completely out of our control, why are human beings so relentlessly obsessed with asking for more good things, like the sewer mentioned?
This is where the notes make a really fascinating pivot. They shift the lens from philosophy straight to human biology.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. The source notes that we don't continually ask for good things because they bring lasting happiness or fulfillment. We do it because it's driven by dopamine.
Dopamine. Everyone throws that word around. We call it the happiness hormone, right?
And that is a massive public misunderstanding. The expert text specifically clarifies this. Dopamine is not a happiness hormone.
Wait, really? It isn't?
No, not at all. It does not make you feel content. It is actually an expectation or an encouragement hormone. It is triggered by novel experiences, by the anticipation of getting something.
Oh, wow. That connects perfectly to everyday life. I mean, this is exactly why you get so excited to buy something new online. You hit purchase, and your brain just floods with excitement.
You track the package every day.
Yes. And you feel that rush when the box is on your porch. But then you tear it open, and literally 20 minutes later, the thrill is completely gone. It dies almost immediately, leaving you wanting to buy more stuff.
Exactly. The brain's reward circuitry actually downregulates those receptors once you acquire the item. Biologically, the satisfaction has to fade.
So we are addicted to the hormone itself, not the items we are buying.
Precisely. Evolutionarily, this kept our ancestors alive, right? If they caught a gazelle and felt permanently satisfied, they would just starve the next week.
That makes a lot of sense.
So the brain forced them to feel empty so they would keep hunting. But today, we just chase the upward swing of the pendulum endlessly.
Okay, so we understand why we chase the good times. But how do we react when the pendulum inevitably swings back to the bad? If we are in withdrawal from that dopamine, it must be brutal.
It is, and the reaction is deeply counterproductive. The expert notes introduce this psychological concept called learned helplessness. And they use this incredibly striking analogy of a sinking ship.
Let's hear it.
So imagine a ship captain whose engine completely breaks down in the middle of a violent storm.
Okay, terrifying situation.
Right. Now, instead of doing the really hard, agonizing, uncertain work of trying to fix the engine, the captain intentionally tries to sink the ship.
Which sounds completely crazy. Why on earth would you destroy your own ship?
Because the sheer uncertainty of the storm is psychologically unbearable. Repairing the engine has no guarantee of success. But destroying the ship, That gives the captain a twisted, tragic sense of control. It is an escape from the anxiety of the unknown.
That is so dark.
Yep.
But honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I immediately see how real it is. The source points out we do this all the time in real life.
We really do.
We skip a huge exam because we can't face the results. Or we avoid a hard conversation with our boss. Or we paralyze ourselves over career choices or financial investments. We literally sink our own ships to avoid the anxiety of maybe.
Exactly. And the expert text adds the evolutionary context for this. It is the exact same biological mechanism as a wild animal playing dead when it is attacked by a predator.
Oh, wow. So we become unresponsive to preserve energy.
Yes. When the nervous system calculates that fighting will consume too much energy with no guarantee of survival, it shuts down. In our modern lives, the uncertainty itself is the predator.
The uncertainty is the predator. That is wild.
Yeah. So when the pendulum swings to the dark side, our instinct is to just sit idle and play dead.
So what does this all mean? Like, how can you, the listener, actively use this information? If we can't control the pendulum and our biological instinct is to just play dead when things get hard, what is the actual solution? What is the purpose of faith or prayer in all this?
The author's notes distill this into a very simple, profound formula for surviving the pendulum. It is this: good times equal gratitude, bad times equal hope.
Good times, gratitude. Bad times, hope. I like that.
Yeah. The purpose of prayer isn't to magically cause good things to happen. It is an acknowledgement that God, or a higher power, or the universe is the one causing the swings.
You aren't spinning the earth.
Right. The text actually compares it to investing in the stock market.
Yeah.
You put your money in knowing full well that there is a risk of it falling. But because you accept that risk, you are prepared for the dip.
You don't jump out the window when the stock goes down.
Exactly. And to illustrate this, the expert source shares two very contrasting real-world examples. And just a note for the listeners, we are impartially sharing the original author's perspective here, just to summarize their point.
Right, of course. What are the two examples?
The first one is Mr. Jeffrey Epstein. The source claims that his pendulum was artificially stuck in the good times phase for a very long time. He had immense wealth and privilege, which gave him a completely false sense of control over his reality, which obviously led to bad actions. But when the pendulum eventually swung to difficulty, he lost hope entirely.
Right, the storm finally hit his ship.
Yes. And the author argues that he lacked the faith to weather the storm, he couldn't handle the loss of control, fell into absolute despair, and ended his life.
He didn't have the internal shock absorbers.
Yeah.
And what was the second example?
The source contrasts this by looking at the people of Palestine. It claims that despite extreme, unimaginable difficulties, there are virtually zero suicides among the people there.
Wow, really?
Yeah. The author attributes this extraordinary resilience entirely to their strong belief in God. The argument is that their faith gives them the strength to bear immense stress. It generates the hope required to not sink their own ships, even when the pendulum is in the darkest phase.
That is a profound contrast. It really points out that whether you work at Google or Apple or you're running a scrappy startup, sooner or later you will hit a wall. Bad luck is there by design. It's a feature, not a bug.
Absolutely. You cannot escape the downward swing.
So just to wrap up this deep dive, our achievements aren't actually measured by the feathers in our caps or the medals we win when the sun is shining. Anyone can be happy then. Our real success is measured by how much those inevitable difficulties teach us about overcoming hardship. You just can't sit idle.
No, you can't. And you know, looking at all of this, it leaves me with a final, somewhat provocative thought to ponder, one that really builds on the text.
Oh, I love a good final thought. What is it?
Well, if we truly accept that the bad times are mathematically guaranteed to happen just like nightfall is day, how might that change the way you wake up tomorrow morning? What if, instead of bracing for impact, you viewed your next major setback not as a punishment, but just as the necessary downward swing that gives the pendulum the momentum to rise again?
That is incredible. A necessary downward swing for momentum. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Embrace the uncertainty of the swing, practice gratitude in the day, hold on to hope in the night, and we will see you next time.